Okay, I'm back again. We're going to talk X-Men, all things X-Men, and we are going to start with the conclusion of X-Men Second Coming, which was the big X-Men event, kind of a cap to what started off in Messiah Complex. Basically, in Messiah Complex, after months and months and months of there being no mutants after House of M, a new mutant's born, and there's kind of this mad rush to get the child before the bad guys do. And what ends up coming out of that is that Cable gets a hold of the child and takes it into the future to keep it safe. And he's basically pursued the whole time by Bishop, who believes that killing this mutant will save his future from happening. Long story short, Bishop fails. And Second Coming is basically they're back. Cable and Hope come back to the present. Basically that's what everybody wants. So they quickly become a target. But Cable is set out to protect her and does whatever he can to try to prevent that from happening. So that leads us to Second Coming, which started off with a one-shot written by Craig Kyle and Chris Yost, drawn by David Finch, his last interior work for Marvel before he switched over to DC. And then it bounced in between the four major X-Men books, Uncanny, X-Force, New Mutants, and Legacy. The issues of X-Force were drawn by Mike Choi. The issues of X-Men Legacy were drawn by Greg Land. Terry Dodson did the Uncanny X-Men issues. I believe Abraham Robinson did New Mutants. So I'm going to pick up with X-Force 13, which is where I picked up. Basically, what happens is Hope comes back and eventually is brought to Utopia to be with the X-Men and Cable. But Bastion, basically a Sentinel type from the future, wants to kill Hope. And once they're all in San Francisco, he erects an energy dome around San Francisco that traps them. And then starts pumping in his future Sentinels from the future. So basically, leading up to X-Force 13, Cable took X-Force back with him to the future with him to stop the Sentinel invasion. And eventually they succeeded, but they were basically kind of sent there with the pretense that they could never come back. It was a one-way trip. So they go there, and Hope finds this out, and she hates Cyclops for it. So then, basically, at the end of the issue, when we think X-Force is dead, Cable lets his techno-organic virus overcome his body so that he can open up the field and let everybody through. Of course, basically ends with Cable dying, which sends Hope off, and we get, assumedly, the Phoenix Force comes through her, and she goes crazy and kills Bastion and everything. And then it all caps off with X-Men Second Coming #2, which features several different stories. Honestly, at this point, everyone's safe. Hope's going to go try to find her family in Alaska. And kind of what comes out of this is that Cerebro detects 5 New Mutants, which leads us into the next X-Men story in Uncanny X-Men called The Five Lights. So basically, that's all you take out of Second Coming. Nightcrawler and Cable are dead. Hope is with the X-Men, and there's 5 New Mutants. 14 parts for that. Anyway, we then kind of go into a Heroic Age Uncanny X-Men one-shot, which is just kind of several and Beast quits the X-Men. That's the other thing you take out of Second Coming. With this, we get 3 stories that kind of run together. They're not like in the row. They interweave with one another. And one of those is the Cyclops story, featuring Captain America, drawn by Willis Patachio, inked by Ed Tadeo, written by Matt Fraction. Actually, they're all written by Matt Fraction. We have a Hope story, which just deals kind of with Hope kind of deciding that she wants to go meet her family. And then we have a Beast story, which is kind of reeling after Beast departed from the X-Men. And it's cute. Cyclops is basically awarded the Presidential Medal of Honor by Steve Rogers to try to get mutants back in the forefront and in good standing with everyone. So it's kind of just a primer again for what's coming up in X-Men. Kind of rehashes things and rehashes the 5 New Mutants thing. Which then leads us into, this is where I'm really going to start talking about it. I just wanted to get those out of the way. Uncanny X-Men 526. which is the first part of Five Lights, and also features a story called Rebuilding by Alan Heinberg and Olivier Coipel. But this is the first part of the Five Lights. Basically, once we find out, or they find out, that there are 5 new mutants, Cyclops sends 5 teams out to monitor them, just to see what's going on. And so this arc is drawn by Will Patachio, kind of returning to the X-Men. He's a guy that's founder of Image Comics, also contributed to Image United. And basically, in this issue, Hope goes to Alaska, finds out her mother is dead, but she ends up having a chance encounter with her grandmother. So she finds out that she does have family, and that kind of just shows her, basically finds out that her mother was a firefighter who only wanted to help people. So that kind of instills in her this whole, the X-Men are kind of doing the right thing. So the Five Lights, the people that are all the new mutants of the Five Lights, are freaking out because these are all like young adults that are finally having their X genes activated. So people are kind of losing their minds. So Hope basically interacts with the first one who's about to jump off a building, and basically the first one, her mutation finally sets in, and Hope basically convinces her that the X-Men are here to help. And so she's basically, the first one is, they interact with the first new mutant, and they bring her into the X-Men to, presumably, just kind of help her learn about her powers and learn what's going on. And it's not bad. It's kind of just this whole, and the Five Lights eventually are going to get their own series written by Kieran Gillen, but we're getting a good introduction here by Matt Fraction. So it's not bad. Some new mutants, some new characters. I won't fault them for that. And the Rebuilding story by Alan Heinberg and Olivier Coipel basically serves solely as a segue into Avengers Children's Crusade, which is by Alan Heinberg and Jim Chung, and is kind of the next stage of the Scarlet Witch era. Basically, Magneto is kind of seeing here that Wiccan and Speed of the Young Avengers kind of do resemble his grandchildren, and is kind of thinking, and it basically leads to his appearance within Children's Crusade. So worth checking out, definitely. Olivier Coipel is a fantastic artist, so only for that. Anyway, kind of complete break now into something completely different. This was kind of a one-shot that kind of leads into what I'm going to talk about next, and it's The Heroic Age, The Death of Dracula. And in this book, you're never going to guess what happens. Yes, I was surprised too to find out that in this book, Dracula dies. I know, you didn't see it coming either. It's written by Victor Gischler and drawn by Giuseppe Camusoli. I don't know. Butchering his name, sorry. That's the artist from Dark Wolverine. Really good dynamic stuff. So basically in this, Dracula dies and his son takes over. One of his sons takes over while the other son is kind of hesitant and tries to stage a coup, and that coup fails. And he's basically barely escapes with his life. But what we take out of this is that Dracula's son is now in charge. He's united all the sects, S-E-C-T-S, for all you pervs out there, all these different vampire groups together as one, and kind of eliminated any people that would stand in his way. And he's also developed a technology that allows them to go out in the daylight. So he's kind of planning, after hiding in the shadows for years, he's planning to make vampires prominent again. Which leads us into X-Men #1. A new X-Men #1 with a cover by A.D. Granoff there. And this is also written by Victor Gischler, who wrote the Death of Dracula story. And this is actually drawn by Paco Medina, who used to be on Deadpool. And I'm assuming got this gig after he drew the X-Men in the story where Deadpool joins the X-Men. And this kind of builds on that because the vampires are coming out in the daylight, and basically they activate a bomb in the middle of a town square in San Francisco that infects Jubilee, who now has no powers, with this kind of pseudo-virus that just draws her to the vampires. So she is infected, and we find out that basically the vampires are coming for mutants, basically. This issue, basically, we find out that Blade gets involved naturally because it's vampires. And we got X-Men #2 here as well, with a nice Blade on the cover there. There you go. And in these issues, basically, the X-Men are starting to deal with this vampire problem. Wolverine and Colossus are trying to hunt down a specimen so they can examine one, and that's when they run into Blade, and Blade gets involved in the proceedings. So it's interesting. I mean, it's not something that I think is going to light the world on fire. I mean, X-Men #1 had the #1 sales for the month it came out, but that's because X-Men's #1. Um, so it's by no means bad, I don't think. I mean, it's just kind of vampires are very overdone in this day and age, and I'm really like, why are we doing this? Um, Upcoming covers also seem to indicate basically their hand is revealed because basically they want to turn Jubilee so they can get Wolverine. It's basically what the vampires are up to. Didn't really need a rocket scientist to figure that out, but that's what they're going for. They upcoming covers have Wolverine with vampire teeth, so they're coming for Wolverine. Basically, is what we take from this. Paco Medina has a much more. He's got a much more, I guess, almost. I wouldn't want to say cartoony style, but it was a style I thought was really well suited to Deadpool. I'm not necessarily that's well suited to the X-Men. But it's by no means bad. Again, this book is kind of just there. I mean, it's not really bad, but it's not really strikingly wowing me either. Um, X-Men #2 didn't come out too long ago, and X-Men 3 comes out next month, I think. But it's just this Curse of the Mutants thing, which is going to have a bunch of tie-ins that I'm not going to get. I used to be that guy. I used to get all the tie-ins for everything that came out, but after Secret Invasion and Blackest Night, I was just like, F this. Secret Invasion nearly broke my bank. I think I have every tie-in to Secret Invasion, and I have nothing to show for it. I have a bunch of crappy tie-ins to show for it. Dark Reign was the one where I was finally just like, F this. I'm not going to try to read all of it. But honestly, of all this, I'm interested mostly in Matt Fraction's Uncanny X-Men with the 5 lights. I'm interested in that. I'll keep reading the Victor Gischler, Paco Medina X-Men, at least for the first arc, just to give it a shot. Hopefully, once we get out of X-Men territory, we'll get something a little bit better. I'm probably not going to be reading a lot of the relaunched X-Men books. I know the new X-Force book is going to have Apocalypse, but I'll wait till Apocalypse is a major X-Men villain again. Anyway, that's basically my X-Men video. That's a bunch of stuff I read last night, and I read the new comics today. And I mean, I've got plenty of things to read, so I could honestly be back again later tonight or tomorrow. Who knows? But X-Men, Uncanny X-Men, worth checking out. Second Coming, unfortunately, a waste of time for the most part. And X-Men, if you dig vampires, you dig Blade, you'll probably like X-Men. It's okay. It's not wowing me, but it's by no means bad. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for now. We will be back another time.